For the next section, we are very excited to be hearing from educators that are in the school. We'll be hearing from Winston Preparatory School, Borough of Manhattan Community College, as well as PS60. So without further ado, Daniel, go ahead.
All right, so let me get my presentation here. All right, so hey, everybody, I'm Daniel Roeder. I'm a math teacher at the New York campus of Winston Prep, which is a school that specializes in serving students with learning disabilities. And I'm going to be presenting today on the charity election that I ran through the Giving What We Can nonprofit. So first off, what is Giving What We Can? Well, they're a nonprofit who considers themselves to be a community of effective givers. So when we think about philanthropy, a lot of times, as long as you're raising money for a good cause, you're doing a good job, which is certainly true. But what Giving What We Can does is takes that to the next level by using research and analytical methods to determine what is the best possible way to do the most good per dollar. And through that lens, their mission is to inspire donations to the world's most effective organizations. Now, the charity election grant that we received was an opportunity for our students to vote for one of 3 charities to then disperse the grant funds we received from Giving What We Can to the winning, the second place, and the third place charity. So not only was that a way to directly allocate funds to particularly impactful organizations, but it was also designed to inspire meaningful discussions between our students and to empower them to find a voice and an understanding of some of the globe's and world's most complex social issues right now. Now, the grant was organized in order to incentivize student participation. So for every vote we got, $2 was allocated to the ultimate total that we were then dispersing to these charities. And while that might not seem like a lot, by the end of the presentation, when I show the results, I think it'll show you just how powerful effective altruism as a concept is when it comes to driving impact with any amount of money, but even a relatively small amount given to how much sometimes you could see donated. Now, the winning charity received 75%. Second place was 20%, and the third place charity also received 5% of our total grant pool. Now, as I mentioned, this whole model is really built to incentivize student engagement. So how did we get our kids interested? First off, obviously being fairly organized through a remote setting, both last year and even continuing into this year, my student leadership panel actually put together a Google Classroom page. So just like all our students at the school have Google Classroom pages for their actual classes, we created one to organize all of the documents and all of the information relating to the charity election. And so not only was this available to all the students in the school, but it also gave my student leadership team, who helped me put on the entire charity election, the opportunity to take on a leadership and operational role that really drove the charity election forward. Additionally, to inspire interest, we have weekly emails that go home. And so both to our students, but also to our parents, really for the whole month leading up to the charity election, there was no way to miss that this was going on. And we really wanted to make sure to drive that student engagement in order to maximize how much money would ultimately be donated to all of the charities. And then lastly, one unique dynamic of our school is that our students are able to spend one-on-one time with a particular teacher, which is called their focus teacher, each day. And so one of the ideas my student leadership panel came up with is that if we got our focus teachers on board in terms of helping to facilitate the voting process, then that would be that much more likely to maximize the votes, because students would be engaging in this one-on-one with the teacher and ultimately put their vote in there. So what you see on the right is actually a document we put together to explain very clearly what was going on, what the students' roles were, what their options were, and then how they could actually go about voting. So now, who were the 3 charities that our students got to choose and vote for? First is Project Healthy Children, which provides children with basic nutritional support. Unfortunately, micronutrient deficiencies are one of the leading causes of intellectual disabilities. And the way Project Healthy Children combats this is they actually have technology and solutions to directly input the most important nutrients into food that communities are already eating, which may not have the nutrients, but once Project Healthy Children can use some of their technology and their approaches to supplement that food, the rate of malnourishment drastically decreases. The second option is called the GiveWell Maximum Impact Fund. So, unlike Project Healthy Children, which is its own nonprofit altogether, what the GiveWell Maximum Impact Fund does is similar to Giving What We Can. They're an effective altruist organization. So, they receive donations, they pool them together, and then they have researchers deciding on a quarterly basis each year what the most impactful charity is that they could donate their funds to. And two recent examples of this is the Helen Keller International nonprofit, which, similar to Project Healthy Children, focuses on getting micronutrients to at-need communities. And then secondly, the Against Malaria Fund, which is well known to be one of the most impactful charities, and that for every roughly $2,500 to $3,000 they get in donations, they have documented that they can literally save someone's life. And this fund in particular has seen a lot of growth of late. When they first started, they were really only donating about $100,000 per quarter. And as effective altruism has grown in popularity, they're now donating about $25 million per quarter to different charities. The last option our students had was the Humane League. And their mission is to end the abuse of animals that are raised for food through advocacy at institutional and individual levels. So this is actually a very big area in effective altruist communities as far as animal abuse and animal rights, just because the sheer number of animals that we as a global community take in each year and raise as livestock is so significant that when you think about reducing global suffering as a whole, the animal perspective is hard to miss. So those were the three options that our students had to vote for. Now, Giving What We Can was a really big help in terms of facilitating the whole election process. And one thing that was cool that they did in addition to the vote is there was a survey students did. And so what you see here is a word cloud of some of the most important issues students took away once they learned about the charities that were their options and made their vote. A couple things that stuck out to me was obviously the way a number like world hunger or poverty or important issues just as a whole stuck out because those were what our charities were allocated around. But even the way it caused students to engage with some of our most pressing issues here in America, like racism, or even just people as a whole. I thought that was pretty powerful to see because civics really comes down to people helping people. So I loved how these big issues made our students really think about big topics. Now, over 80% of our student body voted, which I think was obviously bolstered by the fact that we were able to facilitate part of the voting process, but it was also really powerful to see because I know in going back and forth with Giving What We Can as a whole, that was a pretty high number relative to what some of the other schools were able to get in terms of complete student participation. So some other data we collected was what students found most interesting as far as like civic engagement perspectives went in the voting process. Making a positive impact was something that over 90% of our kids who voted felt they were empowered by. Over 95% felt they voted for a cause that was important to them. And what I thought was cool is you also see they thought critically and discussed important issues. So not only was there the kind of emotional side, which kind of goes with the term altruism, but also the effective side in terms of thinking critically and having concrete discussions to facilitate that critical thinking interpersonally across our students. It's another chart looking at how students measured the importance they got from this process. And again, thinking critically, thinking creatively, the kind of intellectual side of this initiative being integrated with the more emotional side of being compassionate and making the world a better place. That's really what effective altruism is all about. So I was really empowered to see so many of our students pick up on that and feel similarly and feel empowered by being able to take part in this process. What was also great is it's one thing to raise some money and have one cool event, but so many of our students also felt interested in continued engagement with either a related charity election next year, taking on a leadership role to facilitate, whether it's through a similar organization or other effective altruistic organizations. Participating in a student club was a high number. So to see that this not only generated engagement in the moment, but is also going to lead to continued engagement was really inspiring for me. And I think what civic engagement is all about. So here are just a couple more data points that I already spoke to. Students felt purposeful and inspired by their action, and over 95% of the students who voted really chose a cause they personally cared for, even though they didn't choose what they got to vote it on. They just choose what they voted on. But by learning about the powerful work these charities were doing, by the time they voted, they felt inspired to be donating money to the cause they chose. Now, our election results, finally, we see Project Healthy Children came out on top with just about 50%. The Humane League came in second, and the Maximum Impact Fund came in third, which I thought actually made a lot of sense. As far as kind of valuing human lives, especially for our kids, seeing that Project Healthy Children was helping kids, I thought that was fairly fitting in terms of their hearts and minds being drawn to that. And then secondly, also seeing the Maximum Impact Fund come in at the bottom. I know when I presented these charities to a lot of our students, they were a little confused, like, why am I giving money to someone else to give money? And the kind of separation that that fund represents in terms of directly funneling funds seemed to create a little hesitation, as opposed to just directly donating and feel like you're having an immediate impact. And going back to just the power of effective altruism. So we had 187 kids vote, which again was over 80% of our students. And so with that, roughly 390, or with the $394 we raised doing that, we are actually able to have now provided 528 people with food-based micronutrient fortification for 1 year. So that just goes to show you how powerful effective altruism is when it comes to driving the most impact for each dollar of philanthropy donated. So that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm going to be looking at the chat, but you can also feel free to shoot me a note if you want to discuss the my charity election further, or even if you'd be interested in trying to run this at your school. I'd love to connect and see how I could be of help in terms of getting you set up with giving what we can. So thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to present on this.